18 days after Hurricane Helene made landfall, my dad and I drove to Swannanoa, North Carolina. A viewer contacted me about a relief center there that is attempting to get the word out about what is happening at the ground level. I was also asked to convey some specific information connected to their experience with FEMA, which I will share at the end of this video. I'm also going to share conversations with relief organizers I met, conversations which I hope will not only give you insights on how to better support the people of this particular region, but also to give you perspective as to how you can strengthen your own homesteads and communities for a local disaster of a similar sort. Swannanoa is just 10 miles east of Asheville, in one of the most hurricane-devastated areas of North Carolina. Hurricane Helene dumped an estimated 40 trillion gallons of water in the southeast, with the hardest-hit areas of North Carolina recording between 24 and 31 inches of rainfall within just a 3-day period. This massive amount of water rolled off the Blue Ridge Mountains and flowed into an extensive river system that covers western North Carolina as well as Tennessee. This caused even the narrowest bodies of water to swell, expanding beyond historic shorelines and shredding through the homes, buildings, roadways, and tree lines that lay in their path. The massive force of this water even carved out canyons that had never before existed. Mainstream media is projecting a death toll of 250 for Hurricane Helene and a missing persons count of 100, figures which many with boots on the ground would consider laughable, though not at all a laughing matter. Being 18 days post-disaster, search and rescue efforts have long since shifted into search and recovery, and those search and recovery efforts are shifting into efforts to rebuild. This relief center was a collaboration of volunteers, the Coast Guard, and members of the military. Multiple helicopters were taking off from this location, both private and Coast Guard. These helicopters were dropping essential supplies to communities who are still not accessible by road. As I arrived, a group of both military and volunteers were heading out with dog teams to perform a search and retrieve operation for missing persons. Austin, an organizer at the relief center, told us that one of the primary challenges is that the population pockets are so small and dispersed here. There are numerous isolated groups of 10 or 20 scattered all across the region. These small groups are more difficult to reach and serve with resources than the larger towns of hundreds or thousands. Austin noted that he has found these micro-communities to be better first responders to one another than formal emergency services. And what he meant by this was that the community is such that neighbors are providing resources to assist each other, patch infrastructure, and simply survive long before relief organizations can reach them. As we drove to the various donation stops across Swannanoa, there was a massive pileup. However, I specifically noted that the surplus was primarily second-hand clothing. Some locations had stopped accepting donations as surplus covered the sidewalks. Now, this prompted me to note that it is important to be in tune with what types of items are needed. At the relief center I toured, things like fuel, camp stoves, heaters, sleeping bags, and so forth, these are the items that are being sent straight out almost as soon as they're delivered as donations, whereas a lot of the second-hand clothing items were piling up high. Samaritan's Purse was a massive relief presence. Volunteers were distributing fresh water and clearing mountains of debris from homes in the area. In fact, all of the debris you see here is not a random pileup, but organized piles formed by the volunteers and waiting for waste services to pick up. As I went into gas stations and restrooms, I realized that even 18 days later, city and county water purification systems are still out in some areas. The toilets looked as though they had not been flushed, but after flushing, I realized it was simply the fact that the water was filthy. Water is coming out of the tap, but it is polluted and unsuitable for anything beyond flushing toilets. Austin said that reports are coming through that intestinal disease is setting in households that did not have a backup drinking water source. They are being forced to drink from unfiltered and unpurified sources while they wait for purified water deliveries. While there is much devastation and loss of homes in the valleys and along riverbanks, a majority of the population still have their homes. The prolonged absence of power, communication, and a purified water source has created a more widespread impact than the loss of homes, though even the loss of a single home is tragic and cannot be minimized. Some residents had wells or backup water purification as well as generators, allowing them to wait out the crisis nearly unscathed. Others had neither and are facing challenges as they continue to wait for the restoration of power and clean water. Now, as for the information that I was asked to share as I talked with the relief organizers, they asked to remain anonymous but wanted this information to be known. FEMA members on the ground are ready to help, but their hands are being tied at the bureaucratic level. This is making it exceptionally difficult for those on the ground, whether FEMA members or volunteers, to network and provide the amount of relief necessary. Now, despite this information, it was an amazing thing to see how a community of volunteers, private organizations, and private donors were coming together to meet the needs of the people. It reinforced me in the importance of local community over government reliance and encouraged me to think of ways that I could make my own homestead and community more ready to serve should a similar disaster strike my neighborhood.